This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, Tuesday, October 24th, Planning Board meeting called to order. My right is the newest member. He's got a very famous name, Ted Williams. Most people these days don't know who he was, but he was a terrific baseball player for the Boston Red Sox from the 1940s. I followed him all my life. And anyway, Ted Williams is our newest member of the Planning Board.
Welcome.
Approval of the minutes. Everybody get a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes.
Okay. I only had one thing on there. I had mentioned trailers, and that's the only, when we're talking the width of streets and mailboxes, the minutes are accurate, but I meant any wide vehicles is,
Right.
it's not just boat trailers. It kind of got centered around boat trailers. I don't know why, but because boat trailers are generally wider than cars.
Any white vehicle?
No, you can leave it the way it was. They'll get the, but that's what I meant. Any wide vehicles, trucks. We'll get to that when we talk a little bit more on that tonight. So, okay. Anybody out there want to make public comment at the start?
I got one thing to say.
Yes, sir.
The address ordinance that you all just did, we at the fire department really appreciate that. And I want to come to the planning board and thank you guys for doing that. That is a trouble spot for us in the fire service, not just here, but everywhere. And that will make things a lot easier for us. So we're kind of hoping you guys will set the standard and maybe the other municipalities will follow suit with it. So I have a lot of influence on the commercial side, but I have none on the residential, so that's up to the planning board. So
Yeah, we're going to discuss that in more detail tonight. I have one issue with something that's in there that, we talked about that last, but we'll wait till we get to that.
Excuse me, I think we need a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
That's right. Thank you. So I need a motion to approve the minutes for the last meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Did you raise your hand? Okay, it was one of them. Okay. Any other public comment? Okay. The next thing on here is presentation from Amy Guthrie.
Planning board members of the audience, after some of our recent discussions at previous meetings, I thought it would be helpful just to give everybody an overview of the septic permitting process here in Carteret County. And Amy Guthrie is with Carteret County Environmental Health, was gracious enough to come tonight and educate the planning board members and the public. Some of you probably are familiar with some of this stuff. Some of you may not be. If anything, it'll be a good refresher for folks.
Absolutely.
And just help better educate folks for future decision making. So,
Thank you for coming, Amy.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
so you should be able to just click the button and move the slide along. And thank you for being here tonight. So.
And you would please speak into
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, as mentioned, I am Amy Guthrie and the supervisor of the on-site water protection unit, and that's a pretty fancy way of saying septic systems and wells. So I'm going to start with just going over our basic wastewater permits. The improvement permit is the permit that you're going to get or you're going to apply for when you've got a vacant piece of property or a developed piece of property that you're trying to develop and you need a septic system. So once we have the application submitted, we go out and do the site evaluation. If found to be suitable, then this is the permit we're going to issue. This permit may have conditions on it that have to be satisfied before we can issue the construction authorization permit. Some of these conditions might be site modifications such as fill or drainage. We might need you to get engineer plans drawn up. You might need legal agreements. You might need a well permit. So if you've satisfied all those conditions, then the next step is the construction authorization permit. That is the permit that you actually can get your building permit with. You can install the system. There might be some other conditions on that permit that we might need some more legal agreements, or we might need letters from engineers or operators, final landscaping. The repair construction authorization permit is issued only when there is a malfunctioning system on a piece of property, and this does not allow you to increase the flow. This doesn't allow you to change the wastewater characteristics. Some sites may not be suitable for septic. They might have been developed so long ago, and that's when we use our best professional judgment in trying to permit a system that we feel like will reasonably function. Which I'll get to in a minute, but failing system, it basically means you've got sewage surfacing on the ground or it's backing up in the home. That's usually when we get called for those. So after we've issued all these permits and the systems have been installed, we've done all the inspections, then we issue the operation permit. That means we've done the inspections, it is approved, and this is going to allow you to get your certificate of occupancy. All three of these permits are issued for existing wastewater systems. The change of use, it's really a letter, is usually for commercial properties where it might have been permitted for a gift shop. Well, now they moved out, somebody wants to put a restaurant in there. Not all wastewater is created equal. Different commercial businesses use wastewater, or they generate different types of wastewater. So what might have been good for one is definitely not good for another. So it's always good for them to come through us to make sure that the system that they have in the ground is going to work. The authorization to connect and existing system permits are pretty much the same. The authorization to connect is usually in a mobile home park where you're pulling off one trailer and you're putting another one on, or the existing system permit is where someone wants to install a swimming pool or add a shed to the property or deck. This is just to make sure that we keep our required setbacks. The system doesn't appear to be failing. We don't do any kind of inspection for functionality. There's private inspectors that do that. Effective October 1st of this year, these last two permits, the authorization to connect and existing system permit, can be replaced with an affidavit from the building inspector's office. So you might not necessarily have to come to us. Now there are private permitting options available probably the last 5 or 6 years. They've been changing the last 5 or 6 years. So right now we have the engineered option permit that is issued by a professional engineer in conjunction with a licensed soil scientist. We do no review of any kind. We don't do an inspection of the system. We get a copy of the paperwork with file it. Basically it. Same thing with the authorized on-site wastewater evaluator permit. That's almost identical to the engineered option permit, except an engineer is not required and the licensed soil scientist has achieved this AOWE certification. There's also hybrid permitting where a soil scientist or a professional geologist can submit their work to our office. We review, make sure they have included all the information that is required by the law to be included, and sign off on it as a permit, basically. The difference is on this bottom one, the hybrid permitting, we do the final inspection on that. We issue the operation permit. Private drinking water wells, they are required to be permitted by the state, so we do site permit, inspect. So we have the well construction permit, and then after the well has been completed, we've inspected, we issue the certificate of completion. Carteret County has an irrigation well ordinance where not every county does, so we do the same thing for irrigation wells and follow the same rules. So after we've gotten our application, and we go out there for our site evaluation. This is the equipment that we might need. We might not need all of it on every site, but we do need all of it at some point in time. So here we've got our auger, our Munsell color book, I'll get that in a second. Probe rod, flags, tape measures, grade rod and transit, and our file. So when we go to a site, the first thing we usually look for is topography, landscape position. Not all topography is suitable. You don't want to put your septic system in the lowest part of the property. So once we determine where we're going to try to permit a system, we do our auger borings. We look at soil characteristics, which include texture, structure, mineralogy, soil wetness, soil depth, which is not a problem around here. That means depth to rock. That's not something we've ever encountered. Restrictive horizon, usually known as hard pan, and available space. So there is a minimum criteria that has to be met before we can permit anything. There are some unsuitable sites in the county, unfortunately. So when we go right here, I don't know if you can really tell, a depressional area, that's not going to be where we're going to want to try for our septic system. When we look at soil characteristics, first thing we usually look at is texture, how much sand versus clay is in the soil, the structure. This is pretty single grain. This is just a big old massive block. And then soil wetness, we determine by color of the soil. And we have this book that has several of these pages in it, and we compare the color of the soil to these charts. So soil colors found in these two first rows here would indicate wetness, and that can be either in the matrix of the soil or in models. So you can see this here, you've got, even though you've got some of this orange in there, you've got all this gray. So that would indicate a soil wetness issue. So restrictive horizon, this is an extreme example of that. I don't know if you've heard of hard pan, but it sounds just kind of what it is. It's restricted, it's hard, it's cemented. It does not allow water movement. This was actually a picture taken from Cedar Island Bay, where the water has eroded all of the sand away from it, and it's just left this block of hard pan. So putting a septic system in that would definitely not work. It's probably immediate failure. So then if we've found some good soil, do we have space to permit? This was a site plan I got where right here, down here is the property line. We've got our driveways. Here's our house. Here's our pool. And right behind the pool is the ocean. I just made contact as soon as I got that application immediately. And I'm like, we've got no room. You want a 5-bedroom house? There's not enough room down this little skinny area here. So they had to reconfigure their proposal before we ever got started. So what types of systems are out there? It's basically any system approved by the state of North Carolina. So the different categories, conventional, which is your traditional rock and pipe, accepted, which is it's kind of a conventional system just using an alternative material, usually chamber or polystyrene. Modified can be panel block, large diameter pipe. We don't have any of that in the county. Drainage. Then we go down to fill systems, low pressure. Innovative would be your advanced pretreatment systems. If you've heard of a PEAT system, that's an innovative system. And these two last ones, those are usually proprietary systems that are trying to get approved by the state, and they've been given this kind of provisional status. And of course, as you go down this list, the more expensive they get and more complex. So this is your traditional conventional system. This top picture, the gravel and the pipe, it's just laying there, but that's what it looks like. And this second picture is kind of after they're done, the finished product. This accepted trench media, it can be installed exactly as rock and pipe, but it's just a different material. This one on the right is chamber, and it's open on the bottom. And this is the polystyrene where you have the pipe in the middle bundle. And again, large diameter pipe is, we just don't have that here. Fill system, probably familiar with that. You see these big mounds in people's yards. Those are installed usually where we have high water table, and we're trying to get that separation from the bottom of the drain fields to the water table. Low pressure pipe, it has its place. We don't install those as many as we used to, but we've got this center manifold. I think it's about a 3-inch manifold. And then these pipes that go off, that tee off from it, that's 1.25 inch PVC. Those are the drain lines with your holes drilled every so many feet down the line. Kind of similar to low pressure pipe, but it can be installed with higher water tables as the drip system, which it looks exactly like the drip irrigation that you might have in your yard. But there's emitters spaced periodically throughout these lines that emit a certain amount of effluent. The advanced pretreatment systems, there are 2 categories, the TS1 and TS2, and that stands for treatment standard. So TS2 is a higher level of treatment of wastewater, and it does require UV disinfection. These systems are usually sites where we have limited space, so we have surface waters, and instead of a 100-foot setback, I can take a 70-foot setback. Or it's just a small lot, and I can take a 25% drain field reduction. So this is a peat system. I believe there's one down the road somewhere. The drain field actually for this system is underneath all these. These pods are about 3 feet tall, and the drain field is actually underneath. And this is the inside of one. It's actual peat moss from Canada. And you got a septic tank, pump tank. When the pump comes on, the effluent comes out of these round nozzles here and just falls into the peat. And the peat partially treats the wastewater before it ever hits the drain field. So you've already got a partially treated effluent before it ever gets to the ground. This is another type that's called Easy Treat. Similar, but it uses a synthetic media. So these pillowy looking things are filled with styrofoam beads, and the effluent sprays out of these nozzles on top, drains down. This system actually recirculates the wastewater and further treats it before it gets to the drain field. This one's similar to the Easy Treat. Instead of those pillows, I don't know if you see these white vertical sheets, but they're about 2 feet square, and they just hang. So the effluent sprays out of these nozzles here, hits the lid, drips back down, hits these sheets, and the biological activity going on in this pod here is going to partially treat that wastewater. So how does the septic system work? Of course, I can't get into every single type of septic system, but they all start with a septic tank. So you've got your wastewater from your house going through this pipe here. All your floatables are going to float, your sinkables are going to sink. Hopefully, you're going to get a clearer liquid going through opening your baffle wall right here into your second chamber, or hopefully you don't have as much sludge and scum. There will be a filter here if you're in North Carolina, and to go out to your drain field. So after it leaves your septic tank, you've got a pipe. It's going to, if this is conventional gravity, it's going to gravity down to your distribution box where you're going to have your drain lines connected, hopefully equal distribution to all your drain lines. So part of the soil evaluation we're doing is looking at the depth of the usable soil to make sure that we have suitable oxygenated soil in this layer underneath the drain lines before we hit that groundwater, because we want to get that wastewater treated before it hits the groundwater. So malfunctioning systems, again, they are failing when sewage discharges to the ground, the surface water, or the groundwater. It backs up into the home, the drains, collection system, or freeboard of the tank. Or if the tank has to be pumped more than once a month to prevent any of those conditions. This might happen because you Maybe you've never pumped your tank, or you've got a lot of trees and the roots have clogged it. That's the big one around here. Of course, grease, high strength. If you're pouring coffee down, that's going to limit the life of your system. If you're using too much water, done a whole overhaul of your landscaping, or if you're driving on it, the cable company came and trenched through it, or if it's just old. Septic systems aren't meant to last forever. They eventually will fail. So this would have been better in the video, but you can probably see that right there, the sewage just literally bubbling up out of the ground. And again, this looks like maybe winter. The grass is brown. You see all the leaves, but you've got this nice green area here and this little puddle. That's a clear indicator of an issue. Was that somebody was having some problems, so they just literally took the cap off their sewer line. And there again. Repeatedly driving over it, you're eventually going to have this. This one is where kept getting a call from this lady saying it's backing up in the house. And she's on a pump system, and the pump tank was dry. So we're like, okay, it's between the pump tank and your house. So she finally had somebody cut her sewer line out, and we found this big block of Crisco in it. So yeah, that was her problem for sure. This is a riser of a tank, and it's definitely within the freeboard of the tank. It's about to come out that riser. In fact, I think it was part of this system here that got flooded after a hurricane, and probably this right here. So I included this one. You see, this right here looks to be a big mound system. This was down east. Septic tank's right about here, and we got a call that there was sewage in the ditch. Well, we get this call a lot, and we've actually gotten this call in Cape Coral before. This actually isn't sewage. It's iron-reducing bacteria. It's sludgy looking. It leaves an oily sheen. It looks bad, but it is the byproduct of this bacteria. As it breaks down the iron in the ditch, it leaves that behind. So that's a pretty common one. And of course, obviously, the reasons why we want these septic systems to work. We don't need our children playing in it. We don't need our pets playing in it. Although I think that guy was the reason for the system failing. He was digging over it. We like to swim in our waters. We like our shellfish. So our waters are pretty heavily sampled and regulated. So when they find too much bacteria, they are closed. You had asked me to talk about accessory dwelling units. We do get these applications from time to time. They can be a little difficult to work with, just because right now we cannot recognize a residence for any less than 2 bedrooms. Even if it's just 1 bedroom, it's a minimum of 2. So if it's a separate septic system for the accessory unit, we've got extra setbacks we have to keep. We have to worry about 2 repair areas. If we're trying to permit 1 for both, again, the more bedrooms, the larger the system gets, it gets a little difficult to permit because space is usually the biggest factor. Now, January 1st, we can recognize them as 1 bedroom. If they are truly 1 bedrooms, that might help ease that up a little bit. And speaking of rules, everything we do is based on North Carolina laws and rules. We first got our rules July 1, 1977. They didn't amount to much. I've read them. June 1990 was our last big overhaul, and it's funny, it wasn't until these June 1990 rules that we even had mention of soil wetness and worrying about soil wetness. So come January 1st of 2024, we are having a whole new set of rules. They are mostly the same. What the big difference is they're going to incorporate a lot of the existing technologies that were not around at the time that our rules were written. It clarifies some of them so that everybody's doing the same thing, hopefully statewide. It doesn't change how we cite or permit anything. So, question?
Amy, if someone was going to add an accessory dwelling unit to their existing single-family home, and let's say they had a 4-bedroom permit, but they only had 3 bedrooms in the house, I assume they still have to get some sort of authorization from you to do that.
Yeah, again, and that would be something that we would say, hey, let's wait till January 1st because we can recognize that 1 bedroom and either write an existing system permit for the connection to it, or depending on how far away that dwelling unit is, if it needed a pump, so you'd move from part A to part B, we would permit that.
How does that affect somebody who might want to put a toilet in their garage?
So if it is literally a toilet and a sink in your garage for your use, we add no extra flow to that system. You can hook it up to your septic system as long as you can, again, get it from here to there.
Yeah. So if the garage is separate from the house is when it starts to become a little bit
Yeah, you
more of a
might need a septic
consideration.
tank, pump tank.
Okay.
Grinder pumps are a thing right now in building code, but our new rules will address grinder pumps in RN. So we'll have to address that also. But it would certainly be possible, and we've done it.
Yeah. You said grinder pumps will be part of the new rules, or okay,
Yeah.
they'll be addressed.
Yeah, before, if it's grinder pump, oh, go see the building's better. I mean, I personally am not a fan, but with our new rules, if you are gonna have a grinder pump, we're gonna have you put in 2 tanks. Because you're gonna be grinding up all those solids, so we won't have that extra settling before we get to the drain
Gotcha.
field.
Did you say you would only permit separately on a single-family residence lot a 2-bedroom or equivalent?
Yeah, for the extent, yes. If it's a residence, the minimum we can recognize it as per our rules is 2 bedrooms.
So if it were a 1-bedroom accessory structure, they'd have to tie it in, and that would require permitting either add another leach line or
We'd have to do an
upgrade.
evaluation, yeah, determine what had to be done. Now, January 1, we can recognize it as just a 1-bedroom.
Okay.
So if an existing system is sized appropriately enough to handle an additional bedroom in the garage or wherever else, it doesn't matter, just getting the permit from you all, connecting it into the.
If we've got the capacity there, it could be just a connection permit, or again, if you need an additional tank or pump, we probably have to get you to tell us that, get a plumber out there, let us know, hey, can you get gravity to your septic tank where it's at? If not, then we'd write the permit for the pumps and tanks and all that.
What do you see typically in these low areas which have a high water table? You know, in many of the places in our town, the water table is sometimes a foot to 18 inches below the surface. How long do you see these septic systems going before they fail? On average.
Yeah. To start with your example with the higher water tables, the type of system we would permit if we had space would be a fill system, where that's where we bring in the sand and raise that area up. So we've got that separation. If we don't have the space for a fill system, then we're looking at something like a drip system or a pre-treatment system. But they probably last as long as any other type of system, as long as they're maintained and you're not abusing it, just like any other kind. You know, different families do different things in their homes, and you know, if you're pouring bleach every day or grease, you know, you're definitely going to shorten the life of your system, no matter what kind it is. Sir?
You still have to have an operator for like a drip and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like pressure pipe, any kind of drip, advanced pretreatment, you're going to have an operator where they have to come out at least twice a year for maintenance. They'll send reports to us. Those types of systems, we actually have to go out periodically, whether it's every year, every 3 years, every 5 years, and check it out as well.
It's not gonna change.
No, no, that one, they made some modifications to that section of the rules, but the bulk of it didn't change. You was the main operator.
Are these newer systems that they're putting in with a manifold where they have equal pressure to all of the leach lines, is that pretty much the standard now?
That's more like the low pressure pipe system, the LPP system, where, yeah, you've got your manifold, and then when the pump kicks on, all your lines will be pressurized all at one time, and you're dosing your entire drain field all at one time. Those are slowly getting replaced by these advanced pretreatment systems, just because people are wanting more with less land. But we do have many of them still out there, and we are still permitting them every now and then. Those are usually if we have like a high water table coupled with a space issues, where we use those a lot.
I've seen greater incidents of, like professional engineers or wastewater operator, certified person approving permits and taking environmental health out of it.
It is becoming more and more popular. We are still plenty busy, I will say that, but it is, and even the folks that kind of spearheaded that legislation, they're even admitting that it's going beyond what they thought. They originally said the intention was large projects over 3,000 gallons that require state review. They just take so long. There's 2 engineers at the state level for the whole state. So if it has to go to Raleigh for state review, it's just taking so long. That was what that was intended for, was to try to get around state review, but it's being used on little half-acre lots now. And, you know, we're seeing a lot of it, but we're still plenty busy. So I honestly don't know where it's going to go. I don't see us ever being taken out of it altogether. I hope not, anyway.
Any other questions for Amy?
Generally speaking, are the systems in Cape Carteret holding up pretty well? Have you had many instances of failure?
Yeah, I have no way to track location and failures, but I see everything that goes out of the office comes across my desk first, and I don't see any more for Cape Carteret than I see for anywhere else, if anything, maybe less. Yeah, I mean, you've got a really sandy, for the most part, it's a very sandy area, and sand is more forgiving. You got a couple spotty, hard pan, and clay areas, but for the most part, you do have good soil. Of course, the closer you get to the water, the wetter it might get, but yeah, they're holding up pretty well. I mean, you've got a lot of old systems still out there.
It's interesting, I just got through, the first system I put in 25 years ago failed, and I just put a new one in just this past week.
Yeah, I think I saw your permit come across my desk.
Pardon?
I think I saw your permit come across my desk.
Yeah, it did, and I was pleased that Spectre was out 3 times.
Yeah.
1, originally looking at the site, and 2, when it was uncovered, and then he came back again. And well, we'll see how this one does. It's raised up higher than the other one was, and you know, they're checking for how much gravel is underneath and around the pipes and things. But okay, well, thank you very much, Amy.
All right.
Thank you, Amy.
All right. Thank you.
For the planning board, what I want to make a comment on this subject came up when we were looking at, what was it, House Bill 409, which was allowing accessory dwellings on single-family lots. In other words, as you know, the town of Cape Carteret has been single-family residential housing forever, since its incorporation in 1958. And now they're looking at this rule that will not allow us to enforce that or to allow, I call them garage apartments or other single-family developments. This all increases the effluent. You know, they're going to have to get septic permits for larger systems. And House Bill 409 wasn't really intended for areas like this, you know. And here's my issue. it was Affordable Housing Act was the name of it, to allow affordable housing. Well, there's not going to be much affordable housing in this region because of the high cost of land. And I'm wondering if there's any interest in the board members in sending a letter to our Congress people saying that, is there anything that can be done if you, I think it's stalled, is it stalled in the House now, or is it just hasn't come up? Do you know?
I can't remember which. It passed one chamber and has not moved in the other chamber, so.
I'm wondering if we should make comment because right now, the little yellow signs in the waterway, no shell fishing, they're all around here. By adding more septic effluent or making larger systems in the low area, especially down below 24, it's not going to make things better.
Right.
And I'm wondering if there's any interest in this board of crafting a letter to our Congress people to see, and I'm not sure what to say. We'd have to talk about it. So I welcome any comments that you might have.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, the planning board could make that recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, but ultimately I'd want to have the Board of Commissioners either approve or not approve, send in a letter like that.
Absolutely.
But you certainly can discuss it if you'd like, if that's something you want to pursue.
Well, I think it's something we ought to make an effort on, personally. And I sat today trying to think how I would word this thing to a congressperson. So I'm not against the Affordable Housing Act at all, but just in areas it really doesn't fit here because it would make problems worse. And this town had the foresight to put single-family developments and rigorously enforce that, even going to court in one particular case.
If I could. So Frank, 409 doesn't make any mention to like CAMA, coastal communities. I'm assuming it's just very straightforward.
Yeah, so as it's currently written, and again, keep in mind it could change before it's ultimately adopted by the General Assembly. If it's ultimately adopted, I mean, it may go nowhere, but certainly all of the other laws and regulations would also apply. So if there are CAMA regulations, if there are other town regulations that would affect the development, if there's wetlands issues or things like that, and septic, I mean, they're going to have a septic permit to do that. So all of those regulations are going to conspire to limit and control to a certain extent what you can do. But if you can meet all the other requirements, that law says we have to allow them going forward.
Yeah, that was challenged in this town 5 or 6 years ago or something, and it was a garage apartment. I think it was 1 bedroom.
I remember you brought it up at the last meeting.
Yeah.
The situation.
And but the courts didn't get into the septic system. They said it was an ordinance, and they upheld our decision not to allow it.
Yeah, the other thing to clarify for you too, and I think we talked about this at a previous meeting, it also doesn't apply, that law, the way it's written now, that law would not apply in a subdivision that has restrictive covenants. So like, for example, if Star Hill has restrictive covenants that limit it to only 1 home per lot, they would still be allowed to do that. So that's up to the individual homeowners association. So the law recognizes the right of those private communities to control those kinds of things. So that's, I think, another provision that was probably going to limit them somewhat in Cape Carteret if it gets adopted. So.
There's, I once assembled a packet of all the covenants, and this town was developed in very small bits and pieces, and there's covenants like even below Old Cape Carteret, there's probably 3 or 4 different covenants for the different sections that were built. And I don't recall seeing those kinds of restrictions in there at all because that was covered by the ordinance. But is there any interest in this board and we can leave this, let it go tonight, or we could look into it, craft a letter, bring it back to the board and see if it would be a recommendation we could support
I think coming back to it next meeting is probably a good idea because it gives us the time, if we're going to look individually, to research this stuff, kind of try to find what's out there. What's that, Ted?
Ted?
I have a question. I had an incident at Holly Lane. Over here, I built a garage with upstairs. The ordinance now say you can't have a mother-in-law suite,
Correct.
is what we call it. But you're saying the, state will change that for the places that don't have HOA, right, Frank, that they could.
Yeah, there's pending legislation
Going on
and
now.
yeah, and it basically says to all local governments, you have to allow these things.
Yeah.
So like in that particular example, we would not be able to have an ordinance like we have that says
And
you
that
can't do it.
ordinance is what stopped these folks.
Correct.
from doing it.
Correct.
But you got different cases. We all getting older, our parents are getting older, we have to move them in with us. So that's where you come into mother-in-law and suite. These guys here were a married couple, they just wanted a toilet in the bathroom because they work out in a gym. But they couldn't get it. And I feel what you're saying, the closed areas and all. But as you ride down the road, most everybody, look in their backyard, they've added mother-in-law suites.
Yeah, there certainly are
There's a few.
examples
There's not
out
a
there
lot.
where,
It's quite a few down in the old Cape area there where it's no HOAs and all. They add them in after construction.
sure.
Yes, there's a few of them.
Yeah, and, but some of them got families living
One thing to keep in mind too is that our ordinance doesn't say you can't have a mother-in-law suite or an accessory dwelling unit. What our ordinance says is that you can't have plumbing fixtures in the garage, for example. So that's how it de facto prevents those things from happening.
So Mike, the letter you're talking about would be to craft language to allow for accommodations.
Well, I thought about this a lot today, but I don't have any answers. And that's, I think your idea is good. We think about that. Do we want to craft a letter to our congresspeople to take that bill and somehow, if you take the area of this town below 24, you know, the water table, depending on the time of the year and how much rainfall we have, is very close to the surface. All this effluent is going to, and it's cut with canals. There's about 9 canals, water feeding the waterfront. So those shellfish things went out in 1998, those restrictions, and more septic system won't make it better. Okay. And that's my issue. And I know that the Affordable Housing Act was not to do something like what they're doing here. It was to make affordable housing. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of way we could skillfully craft a letter to our congresspeople that would say, hey, can there be any exceptions to this, or is it going to, you know, before this thing gets out?
Well, you heard I was going to say, you heard the presentation just a moment ago, right? The intentions versus the outcomes. So the point that you're making in terms of, you know, how we kind of craft or recommend, I think where I would be at with the angle, and again, we can come back to it for the next meeting, but has the legislation considered coastal CAMA areas?
Correct.
We talked about some of the stuff that would still be in play, but I think where you're going with, and again, keep me honest here, is, hey, legislation, have you considered the impact to the coastal communities?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if that's where we're at, yeah, I think that's important.
Because the potential is that it does harm.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you look at these systems and you go out there and the guy comes down there and he digs a hole in there and he waits about 10 minutes to see what the water level comes up to. Okay. And, you know, in my yard, it was about that much below the surface. Okay. In the front yard, in the backyard, it's even less than that. I promise you. But they put a system in, and I went through all the permitting process. But Alex said it. Have they considered impact on coastal communities that are now, you know, 25 years ago, there was a lot of empty lots close, but you can see what's happened the last 25 years.
Yeah.
Everything in another 25 years close to the coast, the sounds is going to be built up. And that's going to add stress to that system.
Sure. No, I agree with
So-
that.
Then I don't know that we even need a motion for this. If we could put it on the agenda for, to revisit this thing after people have a chance to talk about it, I think that's reasonable. And meanwhile, I'll try to draft up some thoughts that might be put into the coastal community specifically to see if there's something that we want to do to put in this letter.
Frank or Julie, to your knowledge, are there any other organizations out there that have experience with this kind of thing we're talking about right now?
In what regard?
Well, so we had a presentation from the county tonight, but is there any, like, I'm thinking of like the water keepers in my mind, or anybody who can speak to this that might have had the experience dealing with such an issue and the impact?
There's really no group that I can think of
Mhm.
off the top of my head. I mean, there's certainly affordable housing advocates. There's certainly those in the construction and development industry that are promoting this, throughout the entire state. It's not just a Cape Carteret thing, obviously. So, but I can't really think of another group
Okay.
that might be helpful. If you think of one, I'm happy to invite someone.
I think the whole issue is looking at the need for housing across the state.
Mm.
And I think the biggest drivers will be in urban areas where there's sewer, okay? We're not the primary focus of this. We are
Right.
a little,
Yeah.
microcosm. Larger lots where there is sufficient land or sufficient septic systems to be permitted. And, Amy discussed lots of different types of septic systems
Right.
that can be permitted. There will be some sticky lots that might not get permitted. And that's where the system of governance succeeds, or might succeed, this is hypothetical. But if a lot doesn't have the soil, doesn't have the space, it might not be suitable for a mother-in-law's cottage. It might be a different lot that does have the space.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. My comment on that is we experience that right now. There's lots in Cape Carteret that won't perk, okay, or they don't have enough area to put a system in and so forth and so on. But the net result of additional septic leach lines or, more bedrooms is the effluent, which goes into the groundwater, eventually ends up in the sound. And that's the problem that put those little yellow signs that Amy showed us where they shut down shellfishing. And so, and I think the county does a great job of, the guy was out there 3 times in my house, making sure it was done right. And I don't object to the job that they're doing. I'm saying that if I think coastal regions like us need other, the way that thing's worded now doesn't give us any
It's a
slack.
blanket
It's
requirement.
blanket.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, we need some accommodation, I think.
I think you got to understand that the environmental's doing, their job to make sure the systems work.
That's right.
And we have to remember too, we're not just the only ones here. A lot of this comes upstream and everything runs downhill, and unfortunately, we're downhill.
What do you mean?
That's why he's proposing to manage up, though. Your point's well taken, right? I mean, yeah, we're the
We
little.
got industry, we got all that uphill. we got all-
Unfortunately, though, we're often the ones dealing with the biggest impacts, picking up the pieces afterwards, though, right? I think that's what the point is that we're trying to say is, hey, how do we manage upwards?
Yeah, and that's a problem.
A couple thoughts, perhaps they're helpful. I think you're wise to ponder it and then discuss it at the next meeting. But one is that I think you certainly could craft some sort of letter that says because of the sensitive natural environment, we think you should carve out some ability for a local government in the coastal area to prohibit these kind of things. That's certainly, I think, a reasonable approach to take. The other thing I will say to you, though, is that being a desirable coastal community with high property values, there are more affordable housing challenges in places like this. And there will be more affordable housing challenges in places like this in the future. And you're seeing it in lots of other resort type areas. You look at some of the Colorado ski towns, you look at some of the resort communities in other states. So that's kind of like a counter position to what you're saying about the environmental sensitivity. What the legislator might possibly say to you is, well, that's exactly an area where we need to promote affordable housing. So you may want to think about adding some other argument to that about other tools to promote affordable housing, because I think the affordable housing component of it probably is directed at resort areas, high property values. I was just at the State of the Community breakfast this morning for the Carteret County Chamber of Commerce, and they were talking, all of the county business leaders and institutional leaders, about affordable housing issues and how much more expensive it is for just the average person to live here. So anyway, just a thought to help you think about it.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I think you want to recognize that in whatever you might craft. And then the other thing too, I think it's a reasonable concern, but I think the combination of other local, state, and federal regulations and subdivision covenants probably going to conspire together to limit it naturally anyway. I mean, you certainly would still have people like the people in Holly Lane, I think, could easily do that, right? But there's lots of places where you just, even if the legislature says you've got to allow it, all those other rules are going to work to prevent it. So,
Right.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of requests over the years that I've been here for these, call them mother-in-law apartments, whatever you want, you know. And some people like to have people down, and parents like to have a separate place, and you know,
Yeah.
that's what it amounts to. So, okay, so we'll put this, revisit this at our next meeting. Okay. Newtown website.
yeah, now I won't spend too much of your time on this. I really just wanted to take a couple of minutes and just familiarize you with this. We just unveiled a Newtown website a few weeks ago. Actually demonstrated this to the, I don't know what's going on there. Demonstrated this to the town commissioners at their meeting on October the 9th. And so it's, as you can see, I think it's a much more visually attractive website. Hopefully conveys a positive image of our community, both to our existing residents, any potential new residents, existing businesses, potential new businesses. I think that's just really important. It's just the first thing some people are going to see about this community, and we want to look as good as we can for that. So, but the main things I wanted to just point out to you is that we are trying to make it easier and simpler for people to do business with the town of Cape Carteret. So, for example, there's lots of different choices up here, and we're intentionally being duplicative and trying to make it very intuitive for people, that even if they don't know exactly what they're looking for or how to ask the question or how it might be characterized, they can find it in multiple places, right? So like, for example, if you look under the Living in Cape Carteret thing, you'll see a button here for a golf cart registration. And so it'll take you to a page, and importantly, it's got the application online where you can fill this out online. It will then be emailed to the appropriate town staff member. You can actually pay the fee online, and we can process it all without you even coming into the town hall. So as an example, we're trying to incorporate all of those kinds of things to be done electronically. But for example, the golf cart registration shows up here, but it also shows up under recreation. You can get to the same page on golf cart registration. There are lots of examples throughout here where we're trying to provide different opportunities for people to get to it. What I specifically wanted to show you all is on our development services page. We've got a brief explanation of the program. There's a nice picture of Julie, map of where we're located, and then there's this menu on the side here. So we've got all of the traditional information. You know, the zoning map is on here. You all obviously have seen this before, and so it's popping up there, and it's available to people. The flood zone maps are on there, the Unified Development Ordinance, the regular Code of Ordinances, all the county GIS maps, the CAMA Comprehensive Plan. There's a page on here about you guys. You're all listed on there, as well as the Board of Adjustment as well. But the one thing I want to show you is the zoning permits page. And so we've got this on here with an explanation of what you need a permit for. There's all of the documents that are down here if people want to access the PDF version of those documents. But if you want to apply for the zoning permit online, click here, there's the form. It's the same information you fill out with paper. You submit all this information, you can upload plans or other documents that go along with your application. Fill all this stuff out. When you submit it, you get the option to pay for the permit here. So you pay with your credit card. It's real simple and easy. The example I gave to the town staff is that when I go online and buy a pair of running sneakers, I can spend that $100 in about 20 seconds. And I wanted our process to be pretty similar. And we really should be, right? The private sector's figured that out. So you pay for the permit here. Once you submit it, it goes by email to Julie Shambaugh, and Julie reviews it. And if it's pretty straightforward and simple and complete, she'll issue the permit. If there's more likely than not, there may be a need for some follow-up, and she'll initiate that with people. But hopefully that's going to make it easier for people to do business with us. Hopefully it's going to make it easier for Julie to do her job and be just a nice enhancement all around. There are lots of other things on the site, and if you get a chance, check it out. But right here, here's that zoning permits page right there. It's right there, the first thing you see. One of my priorities for the town is to make sure that we're doing a good job communicating with the community and letting them know what kinds of initiatives we're working on, what the issues are, what kinds of events are coming up that people might be interested in. So we've got this news button here, and so it'll list the 3 most recent news articles here. And so if you click on view all, you'll see all of them recently posted. The election coming up, the boat ramp passes are going on sale next week. All kind of new campaign sign regulations in effect, all of those kinds of things, trying to make it easier for people to stay in touch with what's happening in the town of Cape Carteret. The other piece of it, you don't see it right now, but like, for example, if we have a hurricane, there will be an automatic button that will pop up that you will have to click on it to get that information about the hurricane and what the town's doing or how we're preparing and so forth. So lots of other things on there. I won't take you all through that, but I really just wanted you to be familiar with it so that you know what we're doing and you can share this with other people you might come into contact with in the community. So.
Could you show where the board packets are, planning board packets?
Yeah, great point. So again, multiple ways to get to it, but right here, meeting agendas, minutes, and videos. There are other, when you go to your town government, it shows up there. When you go to the town clerk page, I believe it shows up there too. Perhaps I'm wrong, but at any rate, there's different locations. If you go to I want to, right? I want to contact the town manager. I want to view the meeting agendas, minutes, and videos. These will all take you to the same spot. But in this particular case, it pulls up, and this shows the upcoming meetings, right? And so if you look at the recent meetings, if you would have looked at this yesterday, you'd have seen the planning board meeting packet showing up right there under upcoming meetings. Now it's a recent meeting, but everything's here. The videos of the meetings, the minutes once they're actually approved, the agenda packets. I mean, here's your whole packet right here. So, again, we want to be transparent. We want people to know what we're doing. We want people to basically trust us, that we're trying to share information with people, that we're trying to do the best we can to make it a better place. So thank you, Julie, for reminding me of that. If you're on your mobile phone, I'm going to work on the computer, but you can just simply click on the phone number and dial the phone call to get to town hall. All of the contact information's on here for the town staff. If you want to submit a concern about anything, if you got a question, you don't know who to talk to, just click on this and you type it in, and it's going to automatically go to the right staff person for attention and follow up with that person. This takes you right back to the staff directory. The boat ramp permits are really, really popular in Cape Carteret, high demand. We're going to sell them next week. We've got this button right here, just explaining the program. Right now, it's just got the PDF version of the actual application. We are going to also put that application online in the future too. We didn't want to do it for this round because we want to make sure that everything works correctly And we have a cap on the boat ramp permit, so I didn't want there to be any website glitches or someone not know how to do it and then have them not get a pass. So, but in the future, we'll be looking to have one of those forms on there, make it easy for people to do the boat ramp passes too. So,
And just while you're on that subject, it was mentioned at our last meeting, so November 1st is through November 1st through the end of November is residents-only applications, and then after that, it's open.
that's correct, yeah. So starting next Wednesday, I guess is the first, Cape Carteret residents only. They'll go on sale to people outside of Cape Carteret beginning December 1st.
And 2 trailers per application.
That's correct. So one of the changes this year, just since we're talking about it, the sticker actually is going to go on the vehicle. So, and every Cape Carteret resident or property owner is allowed to secure a second permit if they'd like, if they have a second boat or second vessel. But really, you probably don't need the second one, because if it's on the vehicle, you can pull multiple trailers with the same vehicle, and really only need one.
That was the issue when we started this, way back when. It's why we put it on the trailers, so people wouldn't take a vehicle with a trailer and pull somebody else's boat down there.
And that could possibly happen, but ultimately the board wanted to make it a part of the vehicle itself. But there's no perfect solution, and people are creative and always going to find a way around it. But that was a specific change the board made about a year ago.
Well, I'll ask you later on. I'd be very much interested, 'cause that was a huge debate item when we put this in effect, that people could take their neighbor's trailer down there.
How long ago did y'all have that debate?
I would say in 2006 or 7, when I negotiated the lease of that.
It's about the time for it to cycle all the way around again, isn't it?
And so that's the thing, this will be the first year with that. I'm sure we'll learn some interesting lessons from that. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll certainly be open to tweaking it again.
Website looks great.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Y'all did a fantastic job designing and communicating what you wanted, and whoever put this together did an awesome job.
And
really
you brought us out of the
technically.
Stone Age. So thank you.
Very good.
We were able to find stuff now and, visually.
Who was the
it just-
IT company that,
This is actually a company called Civic Plus. They do a lot of
Okay.
municipal and county government websites, but it was really a team effort with our town staff and really getting the content right and making it look right and be intuitive and stuff.
Well
So
done.
a lot of
That's
good help
great.
from lots of folks. So, but anyway, so it's a good tool, and hopefully we'll continue to improve it and expand the information that's on there going forward. So like for example, when we get to the point of you guys discussing the town center zoning district, that's a big deal, right? And so we'll include some detailed information under this news thing, right? Because it'll be a current topic, those kinds of things. And so we'll continue to work on it. There's a calendar here, the fall festival's coming up, all the future board meetings, fire and EMS got the open house coming up this weekend. So we'll continue to improve it, and I'm glad you like it. And if you want a job, you can click here and see what's available. We need some part-time police officers. So, all right, great. Get back to the meeting.
okay, item 7. Actually, it's revisiting something we discussed last month regarding, this for Ted's benefit, principally, that we were talking about whether we should continue to allow concrete and brick and masonry mailboxes in our streets. And this was the police department, so was included in the minutes.
Well,
Go ahead.
Yes, there's an agenda item called discussion mailbox vehicular collision incidents, and it
Mhm.
recaps the police departments.
Do you want to summarize that?
Sure. This was their informal assessment of collision incidents. It's not an overly common occurrence for mailboxes to be hit by cars. Probably 80% of the incidents where mailboxes have been knocked over or hit by cars happen somewhere in the Star Hill subdivision, probably 2 to 5 times a year, maybe. Sometimes we go a year and there are no incidents, but other times it'll happen a couple of times in the span of a few months. Last report taken was a single incident in which a driver hit 3 different mailboxes on Coilwood Circle. This does not appear to be a big issue in the town of Cape Carteret. Some teenagers vandalized some mailboxes a while ago, but they were apprehended and it hasn't happened since.
Okay. The issue was, there's a little information I looked up. Most of the issue was small town with narrow streets and wider than ordinary vehicles. You know, I looked into some of these things, and a truck, just a standard size Chevrolet truck or something like that, mirror to mirror is about 8 feet. Some of the smaller trucks are a little bit, a full size one with, not with trailer mirrors on it, with standard mirrors is about 8 feet. We have roads in the town that are 20 and 18 feet. Okay. So on the ones that are 18, it is a tight squeeze, even with cars going by. So on 20, you got a little bit more room, but still, it's a tight situation. Julie has gotten the information that this does occur, people hitting mailboxes, probably not too often, but they do hit them. But the point that I would make is if we had more of these concrete boxes and they hit them, there'd be a lot more. The U.S. Postal Service recommends that the mailboxes are on structures that are yielding, okay? And it's not a regulation, but it's their recommendation, and that they're not made of masonry and, you know, movable objects. Comments?
I like to comment. I drive a big truck, I drive a 250. The roads are narrow, as you say, and I'm in the neighborhoods all day back and forth. The mailboxes are on one side of the road, but some of the mailboxes are too close to the road. And then on, Monday, they pick up the trash.
Mm-hmm.
The people don't put the can in the driveway back far enough. And I'm going down the road like this, dodging the mailboxes and the trash cans.
That's interesting. I've seen that.
I mean, ride with me one day, my truck's pretty tall. And the people in the little cars think they got the right of way on. And it is very challenging.
Yeah.
And the I got the big mirrors. So my truck's
yours probably 9 feet.
Yeah, I'm out there. And then when I pull my equipment trailer down the roads like Lejeune and all with my skid steer on, it's a dodge and a weave. Yeah. And I think something to be done on the mailboxes, of course, move them back some off the road and let the postal lady get off the road somewhat. You ever notice she's right in the lane? Yeah. She would have a place to pull over.
A comment on that, Ted. I went and looked at a lot of them, and actually, the people are responding to the issue most of them are farther than what the U.S. Postal Service recommends off of the road. You'll see, and the problem with that is that it creates where the mail truck or mail carrier is driving off the pavement every time they service a mailbox, and that causes wear and tear on the road for running off of it. The U.S. Postal Service says the front edge of the mailbox is about 6 to 8 inches from the edge of the pavement, which is it'll be a problem for you, bud.
It is a problem.
Yeah.
It is. These roads are somewhat narrow. I mean, when I work in Raleigh, I go to Raleigh Overland Road. It's a nightmare going down.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Overland Road's bad, yeah.
Yeah, you're familiar with
Mhm.
it. But I tell you, it'd be a big help with the trash cans.
I still think where I land on it is, like I said the last time. In places where it makes sense, if we wanted to explore something, we could. And what I mean by where it makes sense to not be vague is if we had known areas where like access to the boat ramp or something like that, and we're concerned that having any of these kinds of structures is going to create a situation like what Ted's describing, but to the, you know, I guess exceed that, then I'd say, yeah. But otherwise, it's like, well, if we're looking at a situation like when I forgot who brought it up on the last meeting, but Star Hill, I believe there was a couple of these down Star Hill Drive. These concrete mailboxes, right? But if they're, far enough back off of the roadway and everything, I don't know really what we would do about
The
that.
Postal Service doesn't want them far off of it. They've set it so that the mail carrier's car stays on the pavement.
Mhm.
Okay, that's why it's so close, and that makes the problem that I'm talking about worse, because if you go drive around, most of the mailboxes are set, some of them 2 and 3 feet off of the pavement.
I got you, Mike. Let me clarify my point. Sorry. So this would be for anything future state, not for anything current, is what I'm saying, right?
Well, I wouldn't want to, no.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
okay.
want to undo what people have done. It would be, if we had a change in the ordinance, it would be effective the date of the ordinance. So that
Understood.
would effectively
Okay.
grandfather all the other people.
How do you see it?
Plainly, I just don't see that it's that big of an issue.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't want to, throw water on anybody's opinion on this, but it seems to me like that the placement of the mailbox is really the issue, not the material that it's made of. And now I do understand that brick is less forgiving than a vinyl mailbox, of course, but even the police officer said that it's just not that big of an issue.
And that's where I'm at with it. I mean, we tabled it because we wanted to kind of get what we could, right? And seeing this, I'm like, well, to what you're saying, Neil. Yeah. So I think I've spoken my piece on that one, but
Okay. Any other comments, Ted?
That's all weird about it. The police report didn't, it ain't everyday occurrence.
What's that?
It ain't everyday occurrence, I mean.
No,
And you do have people pulling boat trailers that they're 919ers and they're not used to pulling the trailer all the time. You see some funny things.
Oh.
happening.
It took me a second. I didn't know what you were talking about. 919ers.
Go down there and sit one evening. It's something to watch. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the mailboxes. I have no issue with the trash cans, people sticking them way out. Actually, in my driveway, I have my neighbor across the street, and his placement of his trash can, I can't get out of my driveway without backing all the way in my cross neighbor's driveway to pull out.
So the point that you're making there, in my mind, right, what pops up is what we've been talking about a while ago, where the debris pickup and all of that stuff, right? Hey, we don't want it out too soon. We don't want it out too late. In my mind, that trash can, right, especially if it's not removed in appropriate amount of time, say somebody's on vacation or something, it could in theory create a hazard where if someone who let's just say trying to do the right thing goes around it and now doesn't see another car, maybe a pedestrian or something, I could see the safety hazard there, sure. Is that something maybe we explore putting into the whole debris thing, like, hey, proper positioning of trash cans?
I think we should get up with the trash people. I've sat there and watched, they automate it now. To see how far the horn.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, you're right.
Because I think in everybody's mind, to put that trash can out there, it's got to be right there on the road. And
I think it's a
got
training issue. I think it's an educational issue. Educational.
It is.
It's just, I put mine on the street and my neighbor puts his on the grass. But I don't know that mine's right or his is right. So I think it's just a matter
Well, I
of
think in the
somebody
narrow
telling
roads,
us.
it's definitely a problem when they
Yeah.
put them on the street.
Yeah, I can see that.
And the equipment that they have can reach 3 to 4 feet onto the grass.
Okay.
In fact, the guy hit mine. Most of the time, I watched him 100 times do this, and they're very good about how far they extend that thing. Well, he extended it way farther and busted my, and that's tough plastic. He busted it up big time.
Punched a hole in it?
Well, he cracked it 3 places.
Wow.
I put it back together again. I may have to get another one, but they can, if this is the edge of the road right here,
Yeah.
and you set it back here, if it's even 3 feet off the road, they can get it
Wow.
easily.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Monday mornings, Chad, we're doing Monday because they don't come.
Monday mornings and Saturday mornings.
Yeah, they all the recycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a dodging weed type thing to get down through there.
Good point.
I've actually had a trash can mine hit in my yard, and the trash all in the yard.
I think, I'd want to review the contract and talk with GFL, the solid waste contractor, and find out from them what the ideal placement location is, how far off the street in terms of their equipment being able to pick it up efficiently and so forth. And then we certainly can better educate the public about placing them in the right spot.
Here's something that I'd like for you to do when you do that, okay? Okay? And this is off this subject, but
I'm scared.
it's not a better time, okay? It's not a better.
I know what you're going to say. Keep going.
You know what I'm going to say?
I know what you're going to say. I think I know.
What I was going to say is, can we investigate the contract with GFL, or the people who pick up our trash? They go down, they travel every road twice. If we designated in each of the towns to put the trash on one side of the street, I don't know if I think they have a mileage thing in that contract. It's so many tons plus the mileage to pick it up. And when I approached
That's
them years
interesting. I never
ago,
thought of that.
they had no interest in changing to put it all on one street. And I think it's because of the contract, and I haven't looked
You
at
know,
the
they had
contract.
to back down like Easy Street. I'm building a house up there and I'm watching. They go all the way down Easy Street and they got to back that big truck all the way back.
Dang.
And that's got to be hard on the drive. I agree with you. It ain't a bad idea to talk to them about the trash cans on the mailbox side of the road.
Yeah, I'm happy to have that conversation with them, but we are contractually obligated with GFL, and we'd have to cooperate with them. And it's certainly something we can think about the next time we go out for bid. And I'm happy to have the conversation with them in the interim too, to see what that involves. I don't think that they make any additional money by going down the street twice. I don't think that there's any kind of mileage factor in it based on the way it is right now. It's a fixed.
It's got to be. It takes
well,
twice as long.
Yeah, but the way the contract is structured is it's a fixed monthly rate per collection point. So whether you're here and put your can out or not, we're paying, I think it's like $10 a month, give or take. I'd have to look at the exact number. So, so that's what but I mean, the point's well taken, and we can look into that going forward. But
it would certainly be more efficient.
Yeah, and I would think, we'd probably, if that's something we want to pursue, whenever we go out to bid again for the contract, we'd want to stipulate what we want as a community. The other thing I don't know, you'd have to consider this. I mean, if you're the person that always has the container on your side of the street and your neighbor never has a container, those people might be upset. Now, I personally wouldn't be, but those kind of things happen, right? So
People are going to find a way.
I don't
Or they'll
want my
put the
neighbor
trash in your
Jonathan
container.
Smelling up my front yard, right? Tell him to keep it over there, and then maybe I'm just being a worrywart.
There's the situation of, well, they took my can, they didn't take, they left theirs on my property.
I could
Yeah,
see that,
that's
yeah.
They left it there too long.
Just put it in Frank's container. It'll be fine.
But to your point, we'll certainly have those conversations with them. I think that's reasonable.
That was a sidebar. Anyway.
No.
But sometimes when stuff comes up, you got to. So I was prepared to make a motion on this, and it appears it's going to fail. Okay, to restrict concrete mailboxes, except for Paxton. She's not here, and she was definitely in supportive of it. But I'll go ahead and make the motion anyway, and if it fails, it fails, and then we'll be done with it. Okay.
What about Laura too?
Pardon?
What about Laura?
Fair point. She's
Paxton
not,
and Laura would be here.
I don't know where she stands on it. I think, I forget exactly where her position was.
I think she was where you are. Paxton was definitely in the other
Okay.
place, especially on these narrow streets.
Well, yeah, sure. If you want to throw the motion out there, go
All
for it.
right. Effective date of this ordinance, only mailboxes approved by the U.S. Postal Service. Unyielding mailboxes of concrete, brick, or other masonry construction are prohibited. Just that simple. Going forward, not because there's 11 of them, I think, in the town so far.
No.
So that's the motion.
From here forward, they would be prohibited.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you'd probably want to clean it up if.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that you all want to pursue, we'll take your general policy direction and craft an ordinance
Right.
for you to actually look at and vote on. But
Yes.
I think your motion would be to direct the town staff to come back with something for you to review that says
Yes.
that policy.
Yes. That's right. Thank you. Got a second? Got a second? Any other comments? The only comments I'll make is the U.S. Postal Service is pretty, I don't know why it's not a regulation. My father was a postmaster for 40 years, and all I heard was about rules and regulations at the post office. But when you look at it, it is guidance, really.
It is guidance.
It's not a regulation. Okay, all in favor? You second, you're not in favor of the motion? Well, we got 2-2 tie. Because I assume you're not. All those are not in favor?
I'm not in favor.
Okay.
Yeah, not fair.
Well,
Arm wrestle.
I guess the only thing is, since we don't have a majority here, we wait for the other people that are in here and do it again. Okay. That fair, Frank?
Yeah, so I mean, the motion fails, whether or not you wanted to come up at a future meeting.
Well,
you want it to come up
it
again,
didn't
we
have
can
a
put it on.
majority. There's only 4 of us here, and it was 2-2.
We're gonna keep it the way it is, the postal regulations.
Yeah, so your motion failed, and so we're not going to pursue that any further unless
Until-
you want us to. But even at the next meeting, and Paxton and Laura are here, I think they probably would cancel each other out. That was my perception of their positions last time. But so the motion failed, so we're not going to pursue that anymore unless you want us to schedule it for a discussion at the next meeting or a future meeting.
Well, yeah. The motion didn't pass, okay?
Correct.
All right. So it was 2-2. If we bring it up at the next meeting, it'll give the other 2 absent members a chance to say whatever they have. And I think you're right. It's probably going to fail. But I would say that we would put on the agenda for the next meeting, but don't go forward with drafting this.
So just have a similar discussion at the
Yes.
next meeting like you did here tonight. So-
All ties mean the motion fails.
Correct.
I didn't know that, believe it or not.
Motion fails, if you don't have a majority of a quorum of the planning board. So fails.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Got it.
We're not about none of it.
What's that?
We're not about none of it.
Well,
Motion's denied.
I had never seen, I'd never
Well,
seen.
most of the time we don't have a tie, right? And
That's right.
So, cause you guys have 6 people,
that's
right?
true.
And so, and if we had a tie, then the mayor votes to break the tie. So ties are extremely rare. So that's probably why you
Yeah,
haven't seen
I've
it.
never seen it. Okay. All right. The sprinkler system in the right of way, I think that is the solution that was proposed. You want to cover that, Julie?
Basically, in any zoning permit that has a sprinkler system or a single-family house, we can include a condition that no sprinkler system components, e.g. pipes, sprinkler heads, may be located in the street right-of-way, may only be located on private property. just like we put other things
Mhm.
as conditions of a single-family residence zoning permit.
I think that's the way to handle that. Yeah.
Straightforward to me.
The permitting process gets an inspection, you generally got to go out to the site for everything that's out there. And that's the simplest way to handle that rather than put it in the ordinance.
Yep.
How big is the right of way? Is it consistent throughout town?
Yes, pretty much. It's pretty much 60 feet of right of way, total right of way, which includes the road, which is most of them are 20 feet. So you got a significant right of way on each side.
Typically, you've got 15 to 20 feet of public right-of-way on each side of the edge of asphalt. It varies in some places, but for the most part, it's fairly consistent.
So 15 feet from the edge of the asphalt into the yard, no sprinkler system.
Correct.
Right.
And it could be as much as 20.
So realize your sprinkler head is round.
Yes,
It can spray in 360 degrees.
unfortunately, yes.
So if you put it on the edge of your property,
Uh-huh.
which is 15 feet away from the edge of the road,
Yeah.
it can sprinkle into the grass that's in the right of way.
Oh, yes.
It's-
That's true. I see what you're
Does not have
saying.
to be located at the edge of the street to put water on that grass.
I'm with you. I was thinking it should be, because there's tons of them that spray the street.
Yeah.
Instead of spraying the yard, it's spraying the actual opposite way. So yes, I love that idea.
Yeah, and they're adjustable, like in my yard, they spray toward the street.
Yeah.
Because they're out of the right of way. And you adjust them where they don't drown the street.
Well, that's the problem.
Right.
People
They
don't.
They got them, I think they in their mind, they think that they got it right on the edge.
Mm-hmm. It's
They
getting
get
out.
in between the grass.
Yes, yes.
And then they nail up metal things on the edge so you won't run them over, and as you get off the road, you done lost a $300 tire.
I think that's a good solution. In fact, right now, I never water my yard except I just paid $1,200 for sod to cover up the septic system that I put in.
Yeah.
And they say you got to water that for 2 weeks, it'll
Yes.
die on you.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Okay.
and as Julie said, the water's dribbling into the edge of the street.
Mm.
Okay.
Frank, I'm sorry. Did you say 15 feet or 20 feet?
So the right-of-way is 60 feet, and the street pavement is generally 20 feet wide. So if the street pavement's right in the middle of the right-of-way, you'll have 20 foot on either side of the edge. And, and it kind of varies
Okay.
a little bit. It could be 15, it could be 25 in some areas, but most of the time, there's about 20 feet there.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
A good thing, when you go around and look at places, I always look to see where the telephone poles are, because they're usually right at the edge of the right of way. It gives you a good feel for what belongs to the property owner, what belongs to the
That's
town.
helpful. Thank you.
Okay, street numbering regulations, item number 9. Anybody want to start off on this?
Was this discussed last month?
We had some discussion on it,
I'm
yes.
just not too familiar with the issue. Is it the legibility?
Yeah, this was the ordinance amendment where we just simply took the existing policy provisions and moved them from the UDO into the regular code of ordinances. You all reviewed that, recommended it to the Board of Commissioners. They adopted it at their meeting on October the 9th.
Okay.
Subsequent to that, I think Chairman King had some concerns with the the E911 reflective signs on the mailboxes. So I'll let you
Yeah.
share your concerns with the group.
My
But
concern.
the board did approve that
Mhm,
ordinance amendment that we talked about the last time.
Thank you for clarifying.
The issue I have is if the issue was absent, item F, okay, in it, and that was pretty much added with the 9/11 signs. The 9/11 signs that came out, I don't know, 10 years, 12 years ago, I can't remember when they came out, just added confusion to what was otherwise a good solution to the problem. They put them on the mailboxes. As you all know, the post office decides which side of the road the mailboxes are going to go on, and they're all on that side. So what happens is these 9/11 signs come out, and the postal regulations require that the mailbox be numbered according to the house. Like I live at 517, my mailbox has 517 on it. Well, these people put these reflective signs in the mailbox to identify their house, but when the mailbox is across the street, sometimes the other person's driveway, say they move it down the street, so the reflective numbers don't tell you where the house is. And that's why I felt like item F, if the ordinance says you put it on the house, certain size letters, or you put it in the yard. When these reflective signs, I tried to get it, the conditions where they would put it in the yard, either on a stub or something next to their driveway or however they wanted it, right in front of their house. But that didn't. And so they're all over the place, and many of them are on mailboxes on the other side of the road, and it's not very clear exactly where that house is on the other side.
What is an E911 sign?
It's those
It's like
green signs, reflective signs,
What's the
about
purpose?
this big.
What's the purpose of it?
Well, it was a Boy Scout project in our town, but I've seen them elsewhere. You've probably got more comments.
No, they're just, so from an emergency response standpoint, they help fire, EMS, police responders find the house quickly, right? It's basically just a very visible, bright, visible sign on your mailbox so that the fire people can find you as quick as possible. Or the police
Is it
or
just
whoever.
up to the homeowner to choose that he wants one of those signs, or are they special considerations for special cases, or what?
No, you could.
No, I mean, anyone
wanted
can
one.
secure one, and lots of public services, emergency services folks promote the use of the signs. Like, for example, I think the fire and EMS
We
department,
actually make them in our station.
yeah, they're very pleased that people use these things because it helps them get to the person quicker. Because they don't want to waste time going to the wrong house.
I got you. That makes sense. But is the sign, the address, is that what we're saying? It's like
Yeah,
517.
517 Neptune Drive.
Would be 517 in this type of a sign.
But what I'm saying is 517, it may be that 517, the mailbox is on the opposite side.
I got you.
Okay.
I just didn't understand what the sign was.
It was a great project, and the intent of it was great, but the way they executed it was so poorly, because now you have all these signs on mailboxes that are on the wrong side of the street from where
It's
the house is.
defeating the purpose of the sign in the first place.
That's right.
Yes.
And I feel like that if we deleted item F and left it with our town, they'd put these signs and they'd put them by their driveway or on the house like the
It's
ordinance
gotta be
says.
by the house. Yes.
Understand what I'm saying?
I think I get what you're saying about the sign, but where are you going with the solution?
Or I'm going with the solution of item F, it's in here.
I see it, yep.
Item F allows them to put them on the mailboxes, and half of them are going to be wrong
Right.
because you put them on the mailbox.
And it
the
doesn't
house is
solve
on the
the
other side
location of the
street.
house. I
Yeah,
understand.
and it doesn't identify the location.
So is that, how does that tie into E though? Because when I'm reading E, right, it says the numbers used by each owner shall be painted, tinted, or colored so that the numbers contrast with the front of each building, structure, or premises. In my mind, that's where the solution, if there was to be one, should live.
Yeah, so keep in mind the 911 reflective mailbox signs, those are in addition to any street numbers that might be on the house that are contrasting colors and so forth. So, and it's completely voluntary thing, right? What this says is if you want to have one of
Mhm.
these, this is acceptable.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I think what Chairman King is saying is he doesn't think we should allow people to have those.
No, I'm not saying they can allow them, but I knew when they brought them in here that people weren't going to put them on their house because they want the kind of letters that fit with their house. And I think the ordinance without F gives them all the latitude. Now, if they want to put one of those on their driveway, that's fine. We could modify F to say at the driveway. So if 517 is on the side of the road that 517 is, not on the opposite road, and it's sticking next to my driveway, I'm fine with that. So,
Yeah. But if you look at the language that's included here, it says any 911 reflective mailbox sign should be on the mailbox or a post in front of the lot and clearly visible from the street. So it doesn't necessarily have to be on the
That's
actual
that's the
mailbox.
clarification point that I was looking for, because in my mind, as I was interpreting it, I didn't understand it like, hey, we gave you this sign, you must put it on the mailbox.
It's
right?
completely
I think-
voluntary
Yeah,
and
but that's where they all, many of them ended up,
Sure.
most of them.
Yeah.
And it's confusing, because it's on, half of them are on the wrong side of the road.
Okay.
Which is confusing to the emergency personnel who are showing up there.
Or even.
They're going to the wrong place.
Or, that's right, or even you, when you've gone through neighborhoods
Yeah.
looking for
Sure.
a
I see
house.
517 and it's not by the house. I'm going to the other side of the road because I don't know where you are.
Bob Penrod is with Western Carteret
Yep,
Fire and
yep.
EMS. And
I didn't want to
he's-
put him on the spot, but it seems like it's trending in that direction.
This is a good program. I mean, we want the emergency
Yes.
responders to get
Yes.
there as quick as possible, so I'll let you
So-
speak to it.
When a person comes into the station and requests one of those signs, there's two colors, there's green and there's blue. It's just their preference. We make the sign for them right there, and we always ask them to put it on their property. That is the key that we ask them. We don't tell them where, we don't tell them about mailboxes, we just ask them to put it in a visible spot, and fire and EMS or any emergency services can see that sign. That reflective numbers is going to stand out a considerable distance away from where we need to go. So we might be able to pick up that house number 5 houses down the road because it's at the end of the driveway or wherever on the property. And
Okay.
that's the key to the property. We have people put them on their house. We've had them put on trees in their front yard. But addresses traditionally have been an issue for emergency services
Sure.
forever. From a fire code standpoint, I have authority on commercial businesses. I have no authority on residential. There's a lot of limitations on fire code and the residence. It usually goes into the planning of where they're gonna build it, how they're gonna build it, stuff like that. But that's where it comes back to the planning board.
I think we certainly could make some very minor tweak to the language.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
And just specify that it needs to be located either directly in front of the property or in the right of way in front of the property. And it can go on the mailbox or it can go on a little post by the driveway or whatever. So
Well,
your point is you want it to be
I
on the
just want
same
the
side of the
mailbox
street.
part of it out of it.
You don't want them on the mailboxes at all?
Because the mailboxes, half the time, aren't in front of the house.
Well, I guess what I'm suggesting is you could specify that they need to put it either on the mailbox or wherever they want on their property, as long as it's on their property or directly in front of their property. So
Mhm,
if your mailbox happens to be on the other side of the street, you'd have to put yours next to your driveway, for example. But if your
Yes.
mailbox is right in front of your house, you could put it on there, is what I'm suggesting.
One of our biggest issues is that numbers on residents aren't contrasting and can't be seen at night. Porch lights aren't on at night, and it's very difficult for us to see. So, unfortunately, we're waking people up with spotlights because we're trying to hit
Yeah.
an address and it's not consistent.
Sure.
So,
Sure. Yeah.
that's
Perfect sense.
And that's where I thought we were going for a moment with E. But I understand what you're saying, Frank. And I think that that's a good idea. And I think, the other side of it is an education and awareness point, really. I mean, I think, I totally get what you're saying. If we've got a mailbox across the street, right? And having, done what Bob did for many years, I can tell you right now, I used to run into those situations all the time. And, I spoke to that at the last meeting, right? So, I totally get that, right? We don't want to send people across the street and then into, some area, like I said, back of Star Hill Drive there, approaching Pettiford Creek, you've got some pretty dense woods back there. I can easily see a situation like that occurring. But, I think it's just about some verbiage tweaks. Do we really need to eliminate mailbox altogether?
Well, when this happened, this exact same discussion we're having, when these things came out, I had sitting up there as a commissioner, okay? And I tried to get verbiage in there that it would identify the property and the house the guy's looking for when he's coming down the street. When they come down the street at night, they don't know whether the right side is even or the left side is even, okay? They don't know that. And you come and you see odd and even numbers on these mailboxes, because mailboxes, when you put them out, they're often clustered, 2, 3, 4 together, okay? Makes it easier for the mail carrier because they're all on the same side of the road. And maybe
Sure.
half of them came from the other side of the road where they have to walk across the street. I'm saying you put the mailbox thing in there, and that's where people put them, and that
It defeats the purpose.
exactly, it was
Yeah.
almost a self-fulfilling prophecy for me to see where these all ended up. And I said, you had a great program and you're ruined.
Ted, you look like you're thinking.
Uh,
You look like you're thinking. Did you want to say something or?
I think you could certainly address the concern by just honestly deleting the phrase mailbox.
Yes.
In the first 3 times you see mailbox in there, just delete mailbox and call them 911 reflective signs. And then in the very last sentence, after the word post, just note that it's directly in front of the lot. You can put it on the
Yeah,
mailbox
that's
or
fine.
put
There
it
you go.
directly in front of
That's
the lot.
fine.
And
That'll do it.
I think that still preserves the
Yeah,
program. It is a helpful
for us,
program.
I mean, a lot of times, we'll ask people if they want one of these 911 signs, and they're like, well, I really don't need it. And then we say something like, well, UPS and Amazon need to know where you are. Oh, yeah, that would work.
Yeah.
So,
Amazon-
emergency services, but they want their package to.
If I ever saw an Amazon driver come to my home with a spotlight, I think I'd be calling the police.
Well, the police department now is on our system, so they're coming with us anyway, so you'll be all right.
Fair enough.
The other thing, to see how this got out of hand, okay, that the original signs that they showed us, now I don't know if there was other ones, were horizontal, 517 Neptune Drive, and now they've got them vertical, which meant that people were going to put them on their mailbox.
Well, and it's an important conversation just because we don't want to defeat your efforts.
That's right.
Here we are in parallel, right? And you're trying to help the community doing something positive, and here we are not going to even at least discuss that. So, thanks for doing that, because a lot of times people have to actually go to Home Depot or something like that if they want it. So it's a good initiative.
We ask them if they want it horizontal or vertical, or we'll ask them where they're gonna place it. The key thing for our people is we try to make sure they tell them it needs to be on their property.
That's where
It doesn't do any good.
Yep.
We're good.
Whole blank period.
Yep.
Put it on the property.
So
That's it.
I'll read this again. So in paragraph F, 911 reflective signs, the phrase mailbox would be deleted. And then it says address signs known or referred to as 911 reflective signs, the phrase mailbox would be deleted, are permissible so long as the same are 18 inches by 6 inches, made out of metal and painted with reflective paint. The numbers thereon must be reflective white stick-on numbers. Any 911 reflective sign, delete the phrase mailbox, should be on the mailbox or a post directly, add the word directly, in front of the lot and clearly visible from the street. I think that achieves the goal. And if you're comfortable with that, I think this one's simple enough that if you want
Do
to
you
make
want to
a-
leave that last mailbox if it's in front of the house?
Yeah, and that's why I added the word directly, like it. So
Okay.
The last sentence,
All right,
would read, any
okay.
911 reflective sign should be on the mailbox or a post directly in front of the lot and clearly visible from the street. So the mailbox would have to be directly in front of the person's home.
That seems ambiguous to me.
Well, if they
On their
deleted that last
property.
mailbox,
We can tweak it however you'd like.
Yeah.
I mean,
If you just say directly in front of, that could be across the street in front of, which is what we're
Yeah.
trying to avoid. You could say directly in front of the residents on their property, or however you want to recraft that, just so that they don't think it can be in front of my house, but across the street.
They sure know where to put a simple and safe sign though. The long system. Is that a front?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
on the residential property.
or the right of way adjacent to the property.
That'll work.
Either, they could set it back or they could set it up close.
Yeah, just not your neighbor's right about it.
So the last sentence would read, any 911 reflective sign should be on the mailbox or a post on the residential property or adjacent right-of-way directly in front of the lot and clearly visible from the street.
It still says the same thing that you said.
I think it's still
It
ambiguous.
says directly, it's just directly across the street.
Somebody could wiggle with that.
Yeah. I just say, if the mailbox happens to be the same side as their numbers, okay, I'm fine with it on the mailbox, but not when it's across the street.
Right.
Yeah, and that's, I guess I'm trying to find the right way to say that the simplest way. So clearly you want it to be on the same side of the street as their house.
Yes.
Yes.
Either on their lot or on the right of way in front of their house.
Yes.
Um,
Frank, I'm sorry, you were saying you think the tweak is simple enough, and then
Yeah, well, I thought it was. Maybe it's not, but I thought it was simple enough that if you want to make a motion, we'll take it forward to the Board of Commissioners at the November meeting. If you'd rather us write it up and bring it back to you, we can do that too for your November meeting.
I'm personally put it out there, and then I'll bring it to motion. I think it's easy enough that I'm comfortable saying I'm good with however because I think you understand the points that are being made.
Yeah.
So I don't see the need for us to come back to this as another agenda item personally, but anybody else have any other thoughts on that?
I'm fine with it, but I want to see that, I want to prevent what you just said from happening. Where they'll put it on their mailbox, which is directly across the street from them, but it's
Then
on the
they'll
wrong
point to
side of the road.
ordinance And they'll say, look, right here, I'm complying. I was
Yes.
the president of the homeowners association. I know how people work.
Well,
Yes.
I kind of think it's two-pronged though, right? Because I think, and no, follow me here. I see you change your face. I think part of it is, hey, we'll tweak this, right? And I think the other side of it is we can use that beautiful new website of ours to kind of put some, hey, let's promote that awareness in there, right? Like this sign that you might get, right? It's not to be put like on a mailbox. Here's why not, because visuals are great. I think if we could actually get like an example and like show that out there, right? Because what you were saying, it's like, well, Amazon puts it out there, whatever. No, just show them. I think if you're doing it by verbiage, but I also think if you're actually showing it out there, and I'm just going with the way of the times, right? People, a lot of times they just scroll through things nowadays and they say, oh, that looks good.
I'll tell you what, Frank's working on this thing. I trust he understands what the issue is and where the concerns are. Why don't you draft something, bring it back next week? It'll take us 2 minutes to do it.
Next month?
Put it into your and be done.
So any 911 reflective sign should be on the mailbox or a post directly in front of the structure and clearly visible from the street. Does that capture it?
Well, it has to say something like on this, directly in front. If this is my house and this is the street out here, directly in front of it's right here. We have to say on the property or the right of way adjacent to the homeowner's property. On this, in other words, I want it on the same side of the street that the house is on.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess, and if that's the case, do we want to we'll work on crafting some verbiage and come back to it?
Yeah, we can do that if you like. That's fine.
Yeah,
We'll put
It seems like
Sounds
where
good.
that's where we might land. Yeah.
It's trust me, when these came out, I had the same argument that we're having right now. If you let that thing go, they're going to be all over the place, and the emergency service people aren't going to be able to find it. Because you come down the street at night, you don't know whether even's on the right or even's on the left. And if you have an even on the other side of the street, you say, what?
Now you're confused.
You're confused.
And you're delaying and
Yeah,
time.
and you take that big truck and you go past the residence, and then you got to figure out how to turn around and get back.
Gotcha.
The only reason I have passion for this because I went through it
Well, we listen.
years ago and lost.
I think where I like I said, it's a point well taken. I think it's a good conversation. I think where I'd be keen is, are there any initiatives you're doing to promote that? Can the town help with that? Like I said, we've got this fancy new website. Can we promote that awareness?
We're in the process of doing the same thing, building our website right now, and those are the kind of things that we're gonna put on there, probably things, addresses, access to homes, stuff like that. So, it'll be in multiple places. I think the general public will get the information.
Thank you.
The question would be asked is, ask sitting in the yard? Is it easy for y'all to go down the road, would you like, and see it? Or is it easy for us to have people that can't understand the ordinance and still putting them on the mailbox?
Yeah,
Is it easier for y'all riding down the street and they got the number, and you got your light out there and your flash is going, that's gonna pick up the sign in the yard?
You know, it really doesn't make any difference to us as long as it's on the property.
Yeah.
We have them
on the property, that's
to
the
the right
key.
or left of a door, front door. And with it being reflective,
It shows up.
any little light that hits it, yeah.
Yep.
So with that being said, it be in the yard.
The problem we have now is you have like 2-inch black letters on a dark brown house.
Yeah, that's hard to see.
And, you know, we have a program called Active 911 that gives us pretty detailed directions to the house. It'll show us the actual house, but we all know that the web isn't always 100% accurate.
Right. Right.
The other thing I wanted to add to that is when I was researching this, I went around and looked at a lot of properties in the town. A lot of houses don't have any number at all.
No.
Yeah.
And I think your suggestion with this new website, that once we get, after this next week, we get this together, we'll put a nice little blurb on that website of, come on, people,
Put a number on your house.
put a number on your house and put that reflective sign where it'll help these guys. They come down.
That's
there it is,
that's
right
the message, right? There's the ticket. That's the message. Hey, we're not doing this to be stiflers. We're not doing this to be extra.
No.
We just want that if you need to get help, that it comes to you in a timely manner, and that it helps them out, because also they'll know immediately, hey, do I need extra resources? If I'm looking at a home right now that it's, I've got something difficult, that I've got to get extra hands, all of that stuff. So that's the message, right? So yeah.
And they're welcome to, if there's questions about where they need to put it, they're welcome to call us. We're glad to help them. We do get a lot of the elderly that just don't know.
Exactly.
We'll give you a copy of the revised ordinance when we get
I
it
have
done.
access to everything.
I know.
I love the new website because I can go through there and
Yeah.
find stuff a little easier now.
All right, cool. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Number 10 is really just the parking lot, so to speak, of future discussion points. So
We're going to bring that one item back next time. And is it too early for the proposed town zoning district?
it is, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I would think so.
I had an initial meeting with all the property owners 2 weeks ago, and still working through those issues. So I want to make sure I take the time with the property owners before I bring it to you all. But hopefully at your November meeting, could be December. I guess it depends on how it goes.
Do you see a situation where you think it goes past that?
I think I see a situation where, ideally, I would like to bring something to you that the property owners are pleased with, and that
Sure.
I perceive that the Board of Commissioners will be pleased with. So that's my goal. But I think there's also a scenario where I don't bring anything to you because I can't get buy-in from the property owners. I hope that won't be the outcome. I'm trying to avoid that. And
Right.
quite frankly, in my personal opinion, I think it's nothing but positive for the property owners. But
Absolutely.
I would agree.
They've got to make that judgment. Though, so I need to have some more conversations with
I've
them.
been working on that. It will be a boon to any property owners. And there's just no question in my mind that is what will happen. And for people not to recognize it, I can't understand that.
Yeah, if I was the property owner,
They would
I
may have
be
missed
ecstatic.
opportunity.
So,
Yes.
Yep.
And it's like this town center. It might take 30 years to get there. Okay.
It's going to be awesome.
It'll be fantastic for this town to have something like that. Rather than, and I was trying to explain to somebody the other day, one of the people that's running for commissioner, and I says, look, if you don't have something in place, that will get done piecemeal. And you'll have this little thing here, and this little thing here, and this little thing here. It won't all come together. And then 40, 50 years down the road, you're doing redevelopment because you
Right.
didn't sit down and figure out how to do it in the first place.
so anyway, I hope it'll come in November. It probably depends on how much progress I make between now and then.
working with you on that. Heavily.
I mean, I'm optimistic. I mean, I had a good discussion with the property owners a couple weeks ago. It's just, there's still some issues to work through.
Okay.
Okay, and we're gonna put off that, commercial vehicle parking.
That was something that Paxton had mentioned, and I'm honestly not quite sure what she would
Um,
like to discuss.
Yeah, I wasn't clear either.
All
Sorry.
right, well, let's just leave it on there for the next time and we'll address it then. And, public right-of-way encroachments, we've talked about a couple of them.
Yeah, I think in some ways, I mean, the conversation you had about the mailboxes and the sprinklers probably addressed that
Yes,
concern.
yes.
So we'll remove that one, leave the commercial vehicle parking for further clarification from Paxton. The yard debris placement, we have an ordinance that says you can put it out 10 days in advance of the collection, and we've been trying to publicize that better as well too, so we'll continue.
Yeah, I think the website, if, when we put that thing out, and again, this is something I started in 2006, and, you know, people have 2 weekends and a week in between, and that was specifically designed to give maximum flexibility in getting that out there. But, you know, you still drive around, you see some people just throw it out there and let it sit there for
Blow all over the place.
all month.
Yeah.
And,
And we'll certainly continue to
Website
do
would be great for
the
that.
education for
When's
folks.
the next one?
It is, I believe it's the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it's the 27th of November, if I'm not mistaken.
okay, you got the Board of Commissioners meeting for, does anybody I have misplaced who's next after you? I know you traded with somebody.
Well, I traded, but I don't know who I traded with and I don't know if they're up this month, next month, or when they're up. I think Paxton did it for me. I'm not sure.
She did.
But is she up next month?
I'm not sure who is.
All right.
But
It might be me,
Alex.
actually. Yeah, I was about to say it
I
might be
think it's
me.
Alex.
But I'm looking to find the email. But I mean, we could probably follow up off of that offline. I mean, that's just a matter of who's going to. Yeah.
We know you're this.
I'm available if you need me.
Well,
And if he's on the list, he can do it.
no, you're up.
I'll do it.
I'll be fine. Oh,
And
it's
then you're
fine.
next. Okay.
Yeah, I probably should do it because you've got a lot longer tenure in place than I do. I'm coming up in February. I'll be out.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, you can talk to them about the mailboxes.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be short.
I did that for, 7 or 8 years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That review,
Mhm.
and not once did I get a question from a commissioner while I was standing.
You're thorough.
Well, no, I don't know how thorough I was, but I was prepared. I tried to prepare for anticipate any questions. And I
Yeah.
try to, when there's a dispute on the planning board and it's say a 3-2 vote or something like that, it's always nice to tell them, at least if I was a commissioner sitting up there, I would want people to tell me what's the downside or
Sure.
the other side of it.
So actually, I just found the email. So you'd be pleased to know that November is listed as Mr. Alex Quintella.
Yes.
Paxton was December. Laura was
She-
January.
So Paxton's
Paxton was
December.
December, so that would be you.
That would be me. Okay.
So we'll list Alex on the agenda for November 13th.
That's totally fine. Yeah. Along those lines, because you bring up the question, though, it's probably a good segue in terms of availability. The next meeting for us is on the 21st. Does anybody here have a conflict? Because I know that's like right up against travel time, and I'll be fine, but I'm just putting it out there for what it's worth.
Now, it'd be good to know if Cindy's gonna be out of town. I won't be. I'll be here.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Good.
Okay. All right.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
We'll roll with it.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have one more question.
Oh.
All right.
Is there anything that we as a planning board can do about the golf carts. They're more prevalent than the squirrels. They're going this way and that way all over the streets. Kids are driving these things. It's
Yeah,
like,
I've seen a lot of that.
I'm like, well, I had one of them. A car was approaching me. I was approaching, and here comes one passing. And I'm like, this is dangerous. Who is allowing this? And why is it? I look behind, there's no
Is
license
it adult
plate.
or a kid?
Most of them
Well-
are adults, but there are kids that are driving them.
Well, what I would suggest, if it's not licensed, okay, I'd call the boys,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
Yeah,
And
please do call the police department if you see unlicensed carts or if you see underage drivers.
And you're right, I see underage drivers, and I've spoke to their parents, and I said, there's an ordinance prohibiting
Yeah.
you driving.
It's
This
just
isn't-
scary.
This isn't like the farm where a kid was driving when he was 11. you
Yeah.
know?
These are streets. Okay, that's all. Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
thank you. Oh, okay.
That was
That-
from last.
From the last month.
Yeah.